About first of all, I'm gonna give some gifts, right? So there's gonna be a JetBrains license. That's great. Like the sponsors, they're sponsoring this here. I think that every time companies that help out are amazing because they help out to do those kind of things, right? And be here. At some point he asked like, who is the first time here in the user group? This is what he asked. They had that right. Okay, it's not too bad, right? Okay, so. So some people are here for the first time, but I have some other questions here for you, right? So let me try to understand who you are, okay? So who here considers yourself, or you have that position in the company, as a junior developer or junior professional, okay? Several people, that's good, all right? So who here considers yourself, or you have that position in the company, as a mid-level professional, mid-level developer? Right, a few of you, good. Okay, so who here is consider yourself or have the position as a senior professional? All right, the vast majority. Okay, good. Is there anyone here that has a position like a post-senior professional? Yeah, okay, you. All right, good. The CTO, right? CTO is a post-senior position. That's perfect. All right. Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit about that, how to grow, especially for the senior developers, how to grow beyond senior. And what that entails, right? We're going to talk about reputation. I think that's the type of the talk, right? It's a reputation formula. Actually, I have some gifts for you. So let me just put it here so I don't forget, because I'm going to give you some things, some digital things and some physical things, right? So it's going to be interesting. All right, and so I think that's what I want to do here. Right? Maybe because we have a little bit more time because Otavio's not here, right? So maybe do you want me to present the reputation formula first, and then we can use that for questions? Yes. Maybe that could be. So let's see. I said I was not going to use the slide, but we can use a little bit of a slide. How about that? Yeah, just let me see if we can just get this immediately, right? And then. Yes, it's good. It connected directly, so that's okay. Start mirroring, so let's yes, that works, right? Okay. Let's do this here. So I want to do a quick exercise with you guys here, right? I want you to think about, because that's what we're going to be doing the whole time here, right? So I want you to think about two things, right? One, two questions for you here. When you think about your career, when you think about what you want to do, what you want to get, right? So I want to be the CTO of the company. Was that a dream for you in the past, or it just happened? Yeah, it just happened, right? Okay, because you're very technical, right? We're talking back there, and he's telling me, his studies of Rust, right? So it's like, so so you didn't think about that, but it just happened. Do you like when it happened, or you're like a little afraid?
By Jeff Atwood from years ago, when he was saying that if you're not afraid of doing it, it's
not worthwhile, right? Yeah. Okay. Very cool. So some things happen, and some things we dream about, right? So I want you to think about, what is the biggest dream, right? When you think about your career, where do you want to get, right? Do you want to be a CTO like he is, right? Do you want to be, do you want to make more money, right? Do you want to work for a different company, whatever, right? So what is your biggest dream? Do you want to move to another country, right? Do you want to buy a house? Just, whatever it is, right? What is your biggest dream? Can you think about that? Think about something. Yeah, I can see he's smiling, right? Yes, that's good, right? When you think about the big dream, you smile, right? Because that's a good thing, right? you know, and this guy just arriving like, what's this guy talking about? It's supposed to be Java. Yes, you know, Java can be your dream, no problem, right? Yeah, so think about your big dream, right? So you just arrive here, think about your big dream. What you want to accomplish, right? You got this in your mind, big things you want to do. Now, why I deal with this challenge here, I want you to think for a minute, what is the biggest challenge? Why don't you have your dream right now? Is that lack of time? You don't know how to do it. You maybe don't have the skills. What it is? What prevents you from achieving this dream right now? Okay, think about that for a second. Why I type our URL here? Because what I want to do with you guys today is actually try to solve that problem, right? How about that? Those. Okay, so that's kind of frustrating for him, right? Because he went there, I said, I'm not going to use the slide. He said, no slides? And then I'm using slides, right? So it's like, yeah, it's like, okay. All right, so I'm going to we're going to talk a little bit about the reputation form. The reason I'm going to use the slide, because the reputation form is better to see than for me just to talk about it, right? And so that's a good thing. And so I want to talk about, because reputation is one of the most valuable things that you have. Actually, today, while I was waiting here in the room, the front, a friend of mine sent me a message that he was just watching this program by, let's see here, by Dan Kennedy. No one heard about this guy, right? But Dan Kennedy is one of the greatest marketers of all time, right? And he said here, he said, what you get paid for, especially over time, more than for what you know, more than for your service of work, more than for your results, more than anything, is your reputation. Right? So reputation is the reason why you get everything you have. Right? And many times we forget about that. And so I was talking to a Java champion, friend of mine, Heinz Kibbutz. Heinz Kibbutz is very well known in the Java champions community, right? You know, he has a great, he runs a great event called J Crete in Crete, right? Not only that, he has the Java Specialist newsletter. Has anyone signed the Java Specialist newsletter here? All right, so you should, right? Everyone here should sign. It's a great newsletter, very technical content, awesome. But Heinz was in my mentorship group the other day, and we're talking about how to become, how to grow in your career, how to achieve the highest results, how to get the best projects, and how to be an expert, right? And Heinz said a phrase that I've been repeating many times because I love the way he put it. And he said the following, right? If you position yourself as an expert, you get called to solve the hardest problems. And when you solve the hardest problems, you become the experts. Right? Notice that most of us, we have the opposite view. We think that we have to study, we have to learn, we have to do this and that. We have to become the experts. And once you become the expert, we get called to solve the hard problems. But that's not how life works. You become the expert by solving hard problems. And you only get called to solve the hard problems if someone trusts in you. And I can guarantee all of you here have gone through this. A question I get a lot said, Bruno, how do I get time to learn new things? Have you ever thought about this? How to get time to learn new things? Right? Yeah. Developers love to learn things, right? You do, right? We say that we love to learn, right? I actually think that you are, let's say, aficionados for learning. It's more, you are addicted to learning. Let me prove you that you're addicted to learn, right? Who here has ever bought a book about something you wanted to learn, right? You bought a book about something you wanted to learn, but you never even opened the book. Okay, everyone, come on, right? Okay, let's up the ante a little bit here, right? Who here has bought a course? You spend money in a course, right? Something that you wanted to learn, something that you thought was important for you, but you never even accessed the course. Lots of people, right? So sorry, guys, you're addicted to learn, right? It's not only because you like it, you're addicted to it, right? And so here's the problem. I've done the same thing as you guys have done many, many times. And as a consultant, I would study things and I would work, kind of spend lots of time and spend time for my family, time for my weekend to learn all those things. And then 2, 3, 6 months later, I got a project to do that thing. And then I don't remember anything about it, right? So I'd have to go back and learn again, right? And that's the cycle. But on the other hand, if you have ever, I'm sure everyone have done that, right? Your boss comes in the room one day and say, look, guys, we have a new customer, we have a new project, there's a new thing that we have to do, and we're going to use whatever. We're going to use cloud, we're going to use Kubernetes, we're going to use Kotlin, we're going to use Java. And you have to do it, right? But I never learned about this. I don't care, right? You have to do it. And then 2 weeks later, you are the expert, right? Because you do it, you learn it, you figure it out. So that's the reality, guys. Once you get called to the hardest projects, to the hardest problems, you become the expert. I was talking to a Java champion, a friend of mine, Steve Chin. He used to be the main responsible for all the versions of Oracle. So Steve was telling me, that's many years ago, we're now in California visiting Google, right? We had a visit to the Google offices, and I knew Steve was writing a book, and I asked him, hey, you write a book, right? So, how's it going? And he said, oh, I just finished. A couple weeks ago, I'm writing a book about JavaScript, and a couple of weeks ago, I just finished and delivered the whole thing. So the book should come out in the next month. And then he told me, he said, right now, I know nothing about JavaScript. But when the book comes out in 2 weeks, I'm going to be the world's expert on it. Because everyone's going to say, hey, Stephen Chin wrote a book, so she must be expert about that, right? And that's the reality, guys. Once you get called to solve, once you present yourself as the expert, you get called to solve the hardest problems. And when you solve that, that's when you become the expert. Right? And so we got to that's why reputation is so important. Because reputation gets you the phone call. When people trust you, they call you. Make sense? And because of that, when I came to Europe 2 years ago, I visited 11 countries 2 years ago, and I came to JCon, and I decided to, I had this reputation formula that I only explained to my mentees. I had never talked about that publicly. And so I decided to actually, they gave me I had a keynote in JCon, so it was like in a big event on a big screen, like it was on a cinema, right? And I said, that screen on cinema would be the perfect place to present the reputation formula, right? Because it was going to look very good there. And some of the best pictures I have is from that event, right? Because it had a huge screen with all the reputation formula in it. And so this year I came to JCon 3 weeks ago. So I've been in Europe for about 3 weeks now. That's my last week. Friday I go back to Brazil. And I said, it's time to update the reputation form, right? Because let me tell you this, the reputation form is very simple, right? So it's about career, right? It's not about any kind of reputation, about career reputation, right? And it's a formula. So there are things on the top that you got to increase reputation, right? And there are things on the bottom that you have to decrease to increase reputation. Make sense? And the reputation form is very, very simple, right? It's this. Fivascript divided by Emode, right? Very simple. Not a good time to take picture. I'll show you the right moment to take picture, right? Because when you have the formula complete, you're going to see in a minute. Very simple, right? Isn't it? So I keep telling people that's very simple. You can just do this. And they said, Bruno, we cannot understand that, right? And so I said, you know what? I'm going to rearrange the letters in a different position. Going to make it very easy for you guys to do it. And I rearranged it, and I said, I cannot even say that, right? It's better, right? It's better. You know, but then what I did is that I said, you know what? What if I replace those words with different words? Then I can get to the new version of reputation problem that is reputation, right? It works a lot better, right? You know, so that's what I did. And I'll be honest with you, you know, I use ChatGPT to help me out of that, right? To help me find the right words for reputation. But there are the same seven things you got to do. You got to increase reputation. And the 3 things you got to decrease to increase reputation. Make sense? So I'm just going to put the whole thing here, and then I'm going to use the reputation formula to help you on your challenge. Remember the challenge that we talked before, right? I'm going to use the reputation formula to help you on your challenge. Okay? So here is what those things are, right? So that's the full reputation formula at once, right? Because I don't think, you know, we can go over it item by item, right? But that's the full reputation formula, right? Responsibility, expertise, purpose, uplift, right? Take action, autonomy, and trust. Those are the 7 things you got to increase reputation. And on the bottom, you know, being an I person, you know, me person, and just talk about yourself, right? You have to decrease that. Lies, don't lie. You know, I always say the truth, at least don't lie, you know. And lies are very important because lies are square, because when you lie and you got caught in a lie, it completely destroys your career. We've seen many examples of that. Don't lie. And being a difficult negative person, right? So those are the 10 things about reputation that you should work on, right? And we're going to use those things to help you solve whatever challenge you're talking about here. Make sense? And I'll choose different things here. I think there's one more thing I want to show. Yes. Okay. So that's my first gift. I'll talk about this in a minute. Okay. Good. So with that, that's a very short version here of the reputation formula. I can talk about some of those things here, but you know this, right? But here are the most important ones that I think. First of all, purpose, right? Or focus. You have to have a clear focus, a clear purpose. That's why I asked you, what do you want to achieve? Most people believe that purpose is, or focus is the technology that I use, the tool that I use. I keep talking, you know, I had a conversation today with some developers here at lunchtime where, you know, they presented how I'm a Java developer, right? So who here thinks that you are a Java developer? No one's a Java developer here, right? Who here, what language you guys work? Let me say here, who is a Python developer? No? Who here is a Rust developer? No? Right? No more, right? No more, right? It just, right? Okay. You're a Java developer?
Yeah.
Okay. So no, so, yeah, so, but you're not, right? You're the CTO of a company. Right? You know,
but I see myself
as
a Java developer.
That's a very good. So who here sees yourself as a Java developer? Okay, many people, right? Yeah, you know, okay. You know, you're in the Java group, right? That's what I expect, right? But here's the problem. The moment you say, I'm a Java developer, what are you doing? You're putting yourself in a little box, exactly. You're putting yourself in a bucket, in a box that has 9 million other people that call themselves Java developers, right? And when that happens, you know, you're just a commodity. Because now, if you're a Java developer and he's a Java developer, I can replace you for him and vice versa. And so purpose is not the tool that you use. Java is just one of the many tools that you can use, right? And that's true not only for Java, but for everything else that you do. You know, all the things that you learn, you know, Kubernetes and DevOps and, you know, I don't know, whatever, AI. Everyone's talking about AI lately, right? all of those are tools that you learn. And, but that's not who defines you. But you have to know what is that defines you. I had a conversation just last week with a developer, and he was like completely lost. And Bruno, I really need help because I need to find my purpose, because I want to build a company. And if I want to make clear what I want to do. And so we had a very long conversation to actually going after and figure out his purpose. And interestingly enough, our purpose is much larger than the tools that we use, right? And sometimes it's much larger than our career. This guy, for example, he wants to, to build something very special that's larger than his career, right? It's larger than and that's the kind of thing we're trying to find out. So find your purpose. And not only find your purpose, you make sure that everyone around you knows what that is. You have to be able to tell people what that is. Because remember, if you promote yourself as an expert, you get called to solve the most complex problems, right? So your purpose, your focus is not a tool, is the problem that you solve, because you want to be associated. You want to be the guy that gets the phone call. Make sense? Right? Because first you get great customers or work in great companies, we have to get the phone call. Right? Lots of people think that the way for me to work on great projects is to send a resume somewhere, right? Is that like this, right? Yeah, but, have anyone here ever, instead of sending a resume, you had a friend that was working in a company, working in a project, and this friend said, we have a position here. You're perfect for that. Have anyone had this experience? Yeah. Several people have this experience, right? And for some people, that's the only way they got projects and they got jobs in the past. It's like this. But the moment they start looking for a job, they immediately think, I had to organize my resume and send a resume to someone. Right? Research shows, guys, that 75% of the positions don't even exist. Right? They are in what we call the hidden job market. What is the hidden job market? Is that position that I just mentioned here, is a friend of yours that says, hey, our CTO has, is wanting to hire someone for a new project. I think you're the perfect person. Can I suggest you? And then the CTO calls you and say, we have this great job, pays very well, right? It's fully remote, very interesting technologies, amazing place to work, have great culture. Do you want to work for us? So what do you say? Yes, that's very cool. I want to work, right? So that position never shows up online anywhere because it's taken by you, because you got called. Make sense? But here's a problem that we don't realize. We say 75% of the position are like this. But what I like to think about is that if you get the best positions, it's not 75. It's probably 85 or maybe 95, right? Because you know what happens? Let's say the other way around, right? The CTO calls you and he says, look, we have this job. It doesn't pay very well, right? It's very boring, very old technology, right? You have to come to the office every single day and you have to, how do you call this? You have to mark your time that you start and finish, right? It's a terrible place to work, right? We don't have a good culture, right? Do you want to work for us? What do you think?
Probably not.
Probably not, right? No, I don't. I don't want to work for you. And then I ask you, do you want to work for us? Probably not. You said never, right?
Yeah.
Yes, never, right? Never. And so then everyone that I know, I call and I'll say no, right? So what happens with that position? Everyone said no. Not a repetition. I call everyone. I call someone, I publish that position online. So the moment you see the position online, you already tried lots of people and they all said no. So the position that you see online, the best ones are not online. Now, here I'm going to tell what's worst. And that's one of the most common evil things that companies do when hiring people. There's lots of evil things that companies do, right? But this is one of the least evil because it's so common, everyone does that. It's like this. I called him and he said, I want to work for me, right? And so we negotiate, we get a salary, it's a good job, we negotiate. Last time I joined Sun, before Sun was acquired by Oracle, I spent 4 months negotiating with my future boss. 4 months. So that's what we do. We negotiate salary, what you're going to do for 4 months, right? And then the moment we finish negotiating, got an agreement, are you ready? You ready to start? That's good. I have to do what? I have to call HR and say, hey, HR, I finally got the right person for us. Already agree with him, the salary, when he's going to start, all that. I need you to create the position so we can hire him. So what is the first thing that HR does? No? They do what? No, it's not. No, they don't care about cheaper. But they have to do what? They have to create the position, publish online. So they publish the position online. And then you look at the position. What's your name? Alexander. Good, easy name. Thank you. Right? So Alexander right there, he looks at the position and says, that's perfect for me. It's exactly the skills that I have. It's exactly the job I want to work at. It's perfect. I'm going to apply for it. Do you get the job? No, because he's already accepted. I'm not even looking at your resume. And then you are like, oh man, I must be a terrible developer, right? Because I submitted, it's a perfect position for me. They don't even call me. Right? And let me tell you this. I tell this story many, many times. There are recruiters in the audience. And every single time I tell this, and there's a recruiter in the audience, they say, that's exactly how it works. Right? So, and here's the thing that hurts my heart, really. When I joined Sun, after 4 months of negotiation, I joined as the NetBeans community manager. At the time, it was the best, the most famous, the top open source project from Sun. Because I was negotiating for 4 months, so that's NetBeans of the open source project. Sun actually open source OpenJDK, open source Java 1 day before I start officially. So at the time I was negotiating, was the top open source project from Sun, and then OpenJDK come on, and it was not anymore, right? The top. But anyway, there's a top open source project from Sun, a worldwide position to travel everywhere. Such an amazing position. Guys, look, I had this amazing position. That's my agreement I had with my boss. If I had 50 people in a room, I could travel anywhere in Brazil, right? And if I could get 100 people anywhere, I could travel anywhere in the world. So I could just call those guys and say, hey, you know what? Get 100 people in the room, I'd go there, right? So that's a great position. And I had friends of mine that called me because, the day I agreed with my boss, she called me the next day in the morning. She said, in her morning, it was my afternoon, but she called in the morning and said, Bruno, look, we're going to have a team meeting in Prague. Can you travel today to go to there? I said, no, I can't travel today. It's already my afternoon. There's no way I can travel today. I can travel tomorrow. I said, okay, tomorrow's good. I'll talk to the guys here. I'm going to get a flight ticket for you. So you travel tomorrow. I said, perfect. And so then the end of my day, afternoon for her, she called me again and said, Bruno, pay attention. HR has just published your position on the website. Can you please go there and send a resume? Right? Now, I'll tell you what, guys. I had friends of mine, a great friend of mine, she called me and said, Bruno, did you see the position that Sun published? You should apply. It looks made for you. Right? But the thing that really hurts me is that I have a very good friend that he called me and said, Bruno, look at this amazing position that Sun just published. Do you think I have a chance? Should I apply? Right? Now, he was talking to me, and I could tell him, but most of the time you don't have anyone like this you can talk to. And so you don't know. And then you apply for that position. Do you know how many people apply for that position? Like a worldwide amazing position. Do you know how many people apply for that position? I have no idea. Nor does my boss. She never, ever even asked how many people apply for that position. Because I was already hired. I was already traveling to Prague to meet the team. Make sense? So guys, you got to have a clear purpose. You have a clear focus so you get the phone call. That's fundamental. Make sense? But that's not the only thing. Because if you have the purpose, you have the thing that you want, right? But no one knows about that. Does it help? No, it doesn't help. So what you need to have, and that's the T here, right? Trust. You gotta build trust in the market. People need to trust you. You gotta be the trusted advisor. What does it mean being the trusted advisor? If when I have a problem, I call you because I know you're the right person. You know, that happens with me all the time. You know, I'm the Brazilian Java man. So anyone, seriously, I get phone calls from all kind of crazy companies. They have a crazy problem in Java in Brazil. They call me, right? You know, the other day, a few months ago, I got a phone call from this random person. She said, Bruno, you don't even remember who I am, but we studied together in 8th grade. And she said, you know, we have a problem here in the company. It has been like 3 months. No one can solve that. And they told me that you're the right guy that could solve that. And so I get these random phone calls, right? Because everyone knows I'm the Java man. And so if you get the phone call, if people trust you, here's the thing, if they trust you before they need you. Because if they don't trust you before they need you, by the time they need you, they don't trust you. Right? So I have like it's not a 5-step, but it's a 5-sentence, 5-part sentence that you guys have to remember, right? So there's always an if there, right? If you share what you know, other people know what you know, and they trust you in what you know. And when they need what you know, they call you and not someone else. Right? That's important for a consulting company. You got to get the phone call. Right? It's important for you for a job. It's important inside the company. I'm not talking about outside the company. You don't need to change companies for that. Inside the company. If people know what you know inside the company, they call you. Right? I have a mentee of mine, Ronaldo, that he positioned himself inside the company as the AI guy. And he's a Java developer, but he positioned himself as the AI guy. He wrote an article, like a really detailed article. He shared the article with everyone in the company. And, you know, he does talks and he talks about it. So then one day, the CEO of the company, he works for a big company, guys. The CEO of the company calls him and say, look, we have a Python project doing AI. And I want you to go there and take a look and solve whatever problem that is there. And so his boss told him, man, you are a celebrity inside this company. You know, the CEO calls you directly, doesn't even call me. And he told me, Bruno, what do I do? It's a Python project. I said, go there and solve the problem. He said, but I don't know Python. I said, who cares? Right? You are the AI guy. You're going to get the phone call. Right? And so you're known inside the company. So you get the best projects in the company because you are the reference. Because you're trusted. And trust requires a level of visibility. I cannot, trust is what I believe about you. No, I know, actually reputation, right? Not even trust. Reputation is what I believe about you. But if I don't know you, what do I believe about you? That you are a Java developer. That you're like one of the 9 million Java developers in the world. That if I need a Java developer, I might look for you. But actually, I can look for anyone because there's millions of you, right? And so that's why you cannot just be the Java developer. You got to be, because you're not. You're not. Most of you raise your hand saying that you're more than 10 years, you're senior developer, right? So let's think about, especially for the seniors here, right? So who here has less than 5 years of career? 5 or less? A couple of people, right? Okay, a few people. All right, so who here has 10 years or less? 10 years or less, okay, good. 15 years or less, all right? 20 years or less, right? Okay, let me revert that, 20 years or more. All right, you see, when you go beyond 10 years of career, it's a different career, guys, because you've done lots of things. You've done lots of projects. You've done lots of things. You're not a Java developer anymore. You're lots of different things. You've done many things, many different things. You can solve all kinds of different problems. And probably by that time, with 10 years of career, you already chose more or less what you want to do. You're not just kind of shooting for all the sides, right? You have something that you're very good at and they don't want to do. And most of the times we have no idea what that is, right? So when you don't know what that is, you know what you do? You call your friends. You get, 3, 4, 5 close friends, and you call them and say, look, I know what is that? I know I should not be asking this to you, but you're a friend that I trust. And, I know it's going to sound like I'm self-aggrandizing myself, right? But this crazy guy called Bruno came here and forced me to ask you that question, right? You can blame me, don't worry. You ask them, what am I good at? What have I done for you in the past that was really helpful? What is the thing that I did that you thought was unique? Ask this for 5 friends, people in your area, not friends from your childhoods, right? Not friends that you play Dungeons and Dragons with, because maybe, right? But ask friends in your area, right? And they'll tell exactly what you're good at. And you might be surprised to find out that what people see, the things that you are good at, you don't even realize you are. You know why? Because tell me, what does the fish do that is amazing? Swim. Does anyone know how to swim here? Yeah, you gotta swim, right? So that's not what is the fish that is amazing? Breathe underwater, right? The fish breathes underwater. We'd love to be able to do that, right? Would be awesome, right? Now if you ask the fish and say, whoa, man, you breathe underwater, that's amazing, what's it gonna tell you? Right, so what? That's what I do, that's normal. So you guys are the fish, right? There are things that you do that everyone around you finds amazing. They say, man, how can you do that? And you say, oh, that's normal. It's just easy. That's what I do. And that's probably the thing that you're very good at. You don't even realize you are. So listen to people around you, right? Listen to what they tell you. And that's where you're building trust. Now, the problem is that we usually just only do that for a very small group of people, the people that are around us, right? And so the CTO of the company doesn't know what you do well. The customer that you're working for doesn't know what you do well. And we have this tendency of thinking that just because we're doing a good work, everyone knows we're doing good work. And that's not true. For those here that are married or have a girlfriend or boyfriend, whatever, right? you know, you might feel the same thing as I am. So for example, I work with my wife. We are the two people in the company, right? You know, I do have a consulting company that's a little larger, but the thing that I do right now, it's another company that's me and my wife only, right? So we work together on the same company, on the same house, because we work fully remote, right? We're just kind of in two different offices. We work in the same house, but when you get to the end of the day, I have no idea what she did, and she has no idea what I did. Now imagine if that's with my wife, right? Why do you think that your boss knows what you did? Come on, man. You know, you have the t-shirt from the user group, so you must be one of the user group guys. I'm just a bit late. Just a bit late. That's okay, right? But that's good. You know, thanks for coming, right? You know, so if my wife that lives with me, right, is the person that knows more about me than anyone else, if she did not know what I did today, why do you think your boss knows what you did today? Why do you think the people in your team knows what you did today? They also don't. So you have to create a level of visibility inside the team, inside the company, outside the company, right? Because here's the reality. Visibility outside means more visibility inside, right? When you're doing things outside the company, that's when people inside the company sees you, right? You know why? For lots of reasons, but one of them, your CTO, your CEO is on LinkedIn, right? So they don't see what you do every day, but when something happens that's published on LinkedIn that mention your company, right? The marketing people get very excited about, oh, they're mentioning our company for good things. And then they publish that and they copy the CTO and the CEO. And then suddenly your name's on their table, on their phone. You know, they might be, I don't know, playing golf or having a dinner with a customer or whatever, and you pop up on their cell phone. Right? Now, I'm not sure I should say this here because it's being recorded, but you know, they might be in the bathroom, right? Or playing with their kids, and your name pops up there. And then you become visible. Make sense? So that's what we got to do. But Bruno, but I don't want to be visible. I want to have expertise. I want to work on good stuff. Yeah, I know that. But remember the beginning of this whole thing here, right? You know, when you position yourself as the expert, you get called to solve the hardest problems. So if you're not visible, you don't get called to solve the hardest problems. And if you don't solve the hardest problems, what happens? You don't become the experts. So we have to think about this, guys. You know, I know you don't want to be visible. I know you want to be a very good technical person. I understand that. But I'm just kind of showing you that if you want to be the most expert, you have to solve the biggest problems. And here's the thing. The biggest problems are not given to you by your boss. Your boss can't promote you. Who promotes you is the boss of your boss, or the boss of your boss of your boss. So if right now, the boss of your boss is not talking to his boss about you, you're not being considered to be promoted. Right? You're not being considered to solve the hardest problems. So that's why you have to have a little bit of visibility. That's why we have to do trust. Trust involves visibility. Make sense? There's other things here, of course. You have to have expertise. You have to do things. Right? You have to take action. It doesn't matter if you just talk. Talk is cheap. We say that, right? Talk is cheap. Show me the code, right? So take action. You got to do things, right? And for all of those things here, the one I like a lot is autonomy. Because autonomy is something that we all want. But also you have to build it so you can improve your reputation. Right? So what's autonomy? Autonomy is the ability to decide what you're going to do. And developers in general have a lot of autonomy. because there's no one telling you exactly what you need to do. You write in your code and you can do whatever you want. It's very, very hard for anyone to come tell you what you're going to write in your code. It does happen, but very rare, right? So you have a lot of autonomy, but many times you don't have the autonomy to do the right things, right? You know, you want to do testing, your company doesn't do testing, for example, or you want to use a new technology, the company doesn't do that. So you don't have all that autonomy. So that's what lots of us want. We want more autonomy. We want to be able to decide the important things, right? But here's the thing. A lot of those things that you want to decide are not decided on the level of your team. They're not decided on the level of your boss. They're decided above them. Someone comes and say, that's how we're going to do. And then when he gets to you, you have no option. So you got to be part of that decision up there. Otherwise, nothing happens. That's one of the biggest problems that consultants go through, right? Because we are in the customer, and then the decision made somewhere else, and we don't have that access to that decision. That's why it's great to have a consultant doing the work, and then you have someone being able to discuss with the customer 3 levels above. Right? And that's the whole discussion about growing beyond the scene that we can talk a little bit about if you guys want to, right? Because many developers, they get to senior level and they stay there, right? Because that's how far the company will take you, right? And many companies want you to become a manager, and you don't want to become a manager. So, you know, that's one of the paths. There's 5 paths to grow beyond senior. That's one of them, is become a manager, right? So you don't want to become a manager, but the company's trying to force you, so you don't like it. So they don't, you know, you say, I'm not going to do it, so you don't do it. That's okay. And then you get stuck on being senior level forever, right? But what's the problem being senior level? There's no problem being senior level. It's great. It's a great position. You can increase your salary. You can do interesting things. It's great. But the problem is that once you stay at senior level, you don't get to participate in the big decisions. And if you don't get to participate in the big decisions, you don't have what? You don't have autonomy, because you can't make the decisions. Things are just handed down to you, and you have to do it. And autonomy is a very weird thing, because autonomy is either you have it or you can't ask for it. Because if you ask for it, it means you don't have. And if you don't have, you don't deserve to have it. So autonomy is something that you conquer, right? You build trust, you build autonomy, you build it. Build by what? By taking action, by making the right decisions, by taking the autonomy, you know, by doing that thing that everyone says. It's easier to apologize than to ask permission, right? You know, it's doing the right thing that needs to be done. Make sense? Okay, so that's something about the reputation formula. Now, I'm going to bring back now I'll do it. I'll bring back the boards, because now I want to stop, you know, we can still use a reputation formula, but what I want to do is I want to have a conversation with you guys here for as long as you want. They told me that I have until 10 o'clock at night. Is that what you told me? 10 o'clock in the morning? No, my train's at 9. I go to Strasbourg next, so my train's at 9, so that's how far I have. Anyway, so now I can turn the lights on again. Okay, thank you. Okay, good. That was easy. All right, thank you. So I want to help you to achieve the highest level of your career. That's what I want to do, right? So I want to hear your challenges. You know, if you want to tell me your goals, your objectives, you can also tell me this, but you don't have to. I know goals and objectives sometimes are very personal, so you don't have to tell me, but you can tell me your challenges. What's preventing you from achieving things? Go ahead. You have the first question right there. Mm-hmm. Yeah, sure. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Right. Mm-hmm. Yes, you know, so yes, you need to be trusted. This whole thing is not a loop. It's a spiral. Okay? You know, because you get trusted by your friends around you. You're probably already trusted by them. You know, people in your team, they trust you, right? And then you use that trust to create more visibility, and then you get to work on more important projects. And then you use, and that you create more visibility. So I like to say that's a spiral, right? So the way I show this is like this, right? It's a spiral, okay? So you want to grow, right? And this spiral, everyone's going to agree with me on this, right? So the spiral is very simple. You know, already mentioned here, right? If you learn something, if you grow, you know, if you got some experience, you grow, right? Because if you get some experience, what happens? You get to work on more interesting projects, right? So you get experience and work on a more interesting project, right? And we already know that if you work on a more interesting project, you get more experience, right? And so that's the spiral right here. But there's something missing on this spiral, because I know lots and lots of people that they learn more things, but they never get to work on more interesting projects. So the spiral is missing something. And what's missing is sharing, is the visibility part. You learn something, and then you share. So other people know what you know and trust you in what you know. And then because you're sharing, you get to work on an interesting project. And because you work on an interesting project, you get more experience. And then you share more. And then you get more a different project. And then you more experience, you share more. You see? So you're right. It's a circle, but it's not a circle. It's a spiral. Because the more you do, the more people know you, the more people trust you, and the more you grow. Make sense? Yeah. All right. Good. Come on, guys. Show me all your questions. You guys online, you can also throw me questions, right? But you have to chat. You have to write, because Vincent here will read the question if you write there on chat, right? Can I see the chat here? Probably not. Yes, chat right here. Okay. All right, guys. So if you write in the chat, Mike is good. Says, it's funny because someone else is logging as me. So me say that the chat sounds good, right? Okay, go ahead, sir. Mm-hmm. Right. Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. Imposter syndrome, right? It's a very complicated thing, right? Many people have, right? And let me tell you how things work in general. It's like this. You know, you are in a meeting, right? The CTO of the company says, hey guys, you have this challenge here, and you know, we have to use this new thing here, and this AI stuff, whatever. And then you are thinking, oh man, that would be awesome. It would be such a great project to participate. I wish I knew that, right? Because I know nothing about this. And so I really wish I knew this. And then you don't raise your hand. And then Vincent is in the room, and he's like, oh man, that's such a great project, you know, awesome thing to do. I know nothing about this. I would love to participate on this. I would do it. Who gets the project? He does, right? So the same situation, yes, the same situation both of you have, but he is the one that, because he understands that if he does it, he's going to learn. You know, if you take action, you're going to get experience, right? And so, so that's the thing that imposter syndrome kind of prevents us. But here's about, everyone says, you know, you have to have more confidence or do this or that for imposter syndrome. Let me tell you about imposter syndrome. Imposter syndrome is a thing. If you're doing anything that's new, you're always going to feel that you don't know, right? And here's the problem that we have in software development. Every time we do something, it's new, right? Because no project is like the other project. So every single time you're doing something, it's new. That's why developers have this whole thing that, you know, lots of people have imposter syndrome. They're not developers, but developers in particular have imposter syndrome because every time we do something that's new, And every time we do something that's new, we have the feeling that we never done this before because we have not done it before. So there's two options in imposter syndrome for you. Either you recognize that's a feeling and you live with it, just learn how to to live with it, or you're going to be doing the boring things and never feel imposter syndrome. So because that's the alternative, is do the same thing over and over and over, and then you get bored. So you have to choose. Both feelings are terrible. The boredom feeling is terrible. The imposter syndrome feeling is terrible. You choose which one you're going to deal with, right? But, I just want you to understand that that's a normal feeling because it has nothing to do with your knowledge, has nothing to do with anything. It has to do with your brain. Every time you see something that's new, your brain feels afraid because new things are dangerous for the brain. And so the brain's afraid. And the way the brain deals with this is very simple, right? The brain is a very simple creature. You want to do something new. And the brain tells you, oh, no, man, this is not going to be for you. It's not going to work. It's going to be terrible. And you don't do it. And said, okay, that was not important at all, right? I told him was not to not do it. He didn't do it, so it was not important. But then, if you're afraid and you do it anyway, what your brain does, said, oh, shit, he's doing it, right? So I got to learn it. And he learns it, right? Because that's how he works. Imagine someone tells you, oh, there's a line outside the door. And you say, I'm not going to open the door because there's a line outside, right? I'm afraid, right? That's your brain tells you, right? But let's say you have the courage and you open the door to see there's a line. Of course, there's not a line. I'm going to open the door anyway. And there is a line right there. So what do you have to do? You have to run really fast. So the moment you confront things, your brain, does it. Make sense? And the only thing you have to be careful about is to not try to bite something that's much larger than you're capable. Because then you might just crash and burn. So that's another thing that you didn't ask, but I'm going to mention to you guys. Everyone tells you, that you have to be outside of your comfort zone, right? Have you heard that? Outside of comfort zone? Everyone has heard that, right? So here's the problem with the outside of comfort zone. I'm going to put 3 levels here, okay? So that's your comfort zone right here, okay? And so outside of comfort zone is here, right? It's outside of a comfort zone, okay? And the problem with the outside of comfort zone, so the problem, here's more or less how we define, right? There's a mathematical definition of comfort zone. The comfort zone is when you get more than 70% rights. Right? So that means every 3 times you do something, you get 2 rights. Okay? So you're comfortable. You never make mistakes. The number of mistakes you're doing is small. Okay? Now, outside the comfort zone, right? We actually, it's different, right? Outside the comfort zone is when we get over, let's just do right here, right? So less than 50% right. Okay? So that means every 2 times you do something, you miss 1. And you feel terrible about this. It's really bad. Right? Or even more, right? So every 3 times you do something, 2 you get wrong. So if you're too bad, that's what we call this here, the desperation zone. Okay? Why? Because you get desperate. You feel like totally incompetent. And what happens when you're here? You stop doing. No, you don't learn. You stop doing because it's too much. It's too much frustration. And when you get more wrong than right, you can't learn because you don't know what right is. It's like when you try to get to a place you don't know and you're not following the GPS, right? And every time you try, you make it wrong. You never learn the right way to get there, right? Because it's always wrong. So that's the desperation zone. So what do we need to do? What we need to do is that we need to expand our comfort zone, right? We need to push our comfort zone, right, to be what we call the sweet spot. The sweet spot is when you push your comfort zone away, outside. And so you grow outside of your comfort zone, but you push from where you are. So here is like, so you got, I don't know, so X here, right? So you got less than 70% rights and more than 50% rights, right? Make sense? So it's challenging enough that you make mistakes, but it's not too many mistakes that you get desperate. You don't want to do anymore. Make sense? So the idea is like, every 3 times you're doing something, you get 2 right and 1 wrong, for example. Make sense? So that's what we want, right? So that's why, for example, in software development, what we do to achieve this thing here. We do testing, for example. We do prototypes. We do, we have the development environment, the test environment, the production environment. Because on the test environment, you can make lots of mistakes. It's not a problem. It doesn't damage anything. So you experiment. You're trying things out. Right? And that's what we should be doing. So that's why everything you're going to learn, you go from what you already have. Use what you have. So for example, you're a Java developer and you want to learn, I don't know, DevOps, right? Something outside that. So actually go learn DevOps by learning Jenkins, for example, or developing Jenkins, because now it's a Java application that you're comfortable with, using other things that you're not comfortable with. So build on top of what you have. Right? Because the more you build on top of what you have, the more you have a kernel of comfort. Because so for example, AI. Everyone's talking about AI. So what does a lot of Java developers do? They go learn Python. Because everyone's doing AI with Python. So I'm going to learn Python. So now you're learning Python, a lot of libraries that you never heard of, a lot of concepts of AI that you don't understand. So all of these like crazy. And you're like, I have no idea how I'm going to learn all those things. But if you know Java very well, go learn AI with Java. Oh, Bruno, but there's not enough AI project with Java. There is. There's a lot of very cool things being done in Java. So go do those. Oh, but that's not what the customer is looking for. Who cares about what the customer is looking for? You first need to have the comfort. You first need to build that so you can go after something. So use what you have. Use the skills that you have to grow beyond your comfort zone. Make sense? Does that help? Mm-hmm. Sure. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Right.
Northern French developers are working in different countries, so that you do not have to have autonomy and take actions.
Mm-hmm.
So either you have to maybe think outside the box with your customer, or maybe think something new, or something I found myself leading on the focusing on is work as a partner in product company. Where you can build something for the product and not for the customer. I know it's not an opportunity that we always have. It might be a good
Yeah, I mean, if being a consultant is a hard job, right? Not everyone is fit to do that, right? And not everyone likes to do that, by the way, right? It's not necessarily the best thing in the world, right? Because what you're saying, right? You're working for a customer. You might be on the umbrella of the customer is trying to do. You have less autonomy. You have to be. The other day, one of my mentees said, "Oh, I'm reading this book now, and the first 90 days." And I said, well, "Awesome, right? The first 90 days for what? When you join a project, the first 90 days, what you can do to show your value to a project in the first 90 days." And I said, "Guys, I'm a consultant. I don't have 90 days. I may have 90 minutes. to show my value in a project, right? And so, so it's a different thing. It's a different, you're optimizing for different things, right? So I agree with you. And then, but I want to go back to the first thing you said, because I love what you said, right? So, be careful looking to the champions. Here's what I see a lot, right? So people come to an event, for example, and they say, oh man, all those people, they know everything, right? Because you believe that because there's speakers there, they know everything about everything that's going on in the event. And that is not true. Each one of us, we know some things and we don't know other things, right? And so you cannot get like the bunch of people and say, oh, those guys know everything. I get this all the time because people say, oh, Bruno, I want to be like you. I want to know everything. And I don't know everything, right? I just know such a tiny little thing. But what I know, what I do, I'm good at what I do. And the things that I don't know, I'm not worried about that, right? And I think that's one of the most important things. That's you have to be, you have to feel comfortable with the things that you know and feel comfortable with the things that you don't know. We're going to talk about this in a minute, right? But so be very careful. And you said one thing here. I know it's a hyperbole. You said you don't have to have 200,000 followers to be. None of us do have. 200,000, it's tiny for the entertainment industry. Anyone in the entertainment industry has 200,000 followers. We, in our field, software development, I have 17,000 and I'm one of the top ones, right? I might be wrong, but I think the person that has the largest YouTube channel in the Java world, I think is Loyani Greiner, and she has 150,000 followers. That's the largest, not like one of the, that's the largest. You get a lot of Java champions that have 1,000 people follow, even less. So we are not in this field of looking for attention. None of us are, right? And so you don't have to be. You're totally right, 100% right. You don't have to have huge number of followers to be someone to be important, right? Now, what you have is that you need to build trust. You have to have visibility with the right people, and that's what is important, right? So who is the right people for you? The right people for you might be, those 50 developers that are here that know different companies here in Lille that they want to be hired for. So you don't have to have, I'm not sure the size of the company that you guys have, but my consulting company back in Brazil has about 25 consultants, right? We're very tiny, very small company. Look, we don't need hundreds of projects. We don't even need tens of projects. We need like 5 customers, right? And so we don't need to be this company that's visible for everyone in the world, right? Because actually it's bad for us sometimes. Because if too many people want us, we're toasted. Because we always say no to everyone. It's good to say no to some people, but when you say no to everyone, they stop looking at you. Right? One of the problems that I had, before I changed it, I changed my life and went more to the software developers focus, right, and career focus that I'm doing right now. One problem that I had with my boss is that my boss said, Bruno, you can travel anywhere you want, but that's your problem, because we have no business outside of Brazil. So it has no go. We don't care if you go to France, to Lille, and give a great talk and everyone wants to talk to you, because we're not going to do jobs there. So we're not going to pay for you to go to Lille, France. Sorry, right? So because we don't want to be visible that much. Make sense? And so you're right. You don't have to be that visible, but you have to have some visibility. And the one thing I want to point out to this, lots of people compare, said, don't compare yourself to the champions. Don't. I mean, don't even compare yourself to your friend in the same table as you are. You should never compare yourself with other people where they are right now. You should compare you to where you were yesterday, right? Because different people have different opportunities, different situations, different problems, different difficulties, different challenges. You might look at your colleague side by side on your table and you think, oh man, this guy knows so much, but maybe has 2 years more than you, right? And so 2 years from now, you might even be better than where he is right now. So you don't know the situation, right? You don't know, your friends might, for example, he doesn't have any kids and he spends all his time doing 5 different jobs. I know people like this, that they have like 3 full-time jobs. And you're like, if you had to have 3 full-time jobs to be what he's doing, you would not want to do, because you have another life. I tell my mentees, I have a good mentee of mine, Rodrigo Moutinho. When he joined my mentorship, he was explaining, he was very proud to explain to me, Bruno, because, I really want to grow. I wake up every day, 4 o'clock in the morning, so I can study for 4 hours before I have to go to work. And I said, stop that right now. Go sleep, man. Go have a life. Go spend time with your girlfriends, right? Go do something else. I don't want you to spend, because it's too much. It doesn't help if you spend all the time studying and no one knows who you are. Rodrigo stopped studying, and today he lives in Canada, works for an amazing company. He's a DevOps specialist for one of the top game companies in the world. You don't know everyone's situation, so don't compare yourself to anyone. Compare where you are yesterday and where you want to get. Okay? And I think we went a little way away from the imposter syndrome thing, but I agree with everything you said, right? Those things are not easy, for us to make our plans. That's why it's so important for you to know what you want to be, where you want to get. Cool? Okay, let me do this. How long do I still have? I'm talking here, but I'm supposed to be. Where's the food coming? Is there food coming?
Yeah.
Oh, the food's already there. Yeah. Or the food and beer is already here. Yeah. All right. So, no, I don't drink beer, but that's okay. I drink other things. I'm not in a place. No. Yes. Vincent brought, we had a retreat in Netherlands, and Vincent brought 6 bottles of famous French beer from here. And, it's important, right? Yes. Okay. All right. So let me do this. Can I get 10 more minutes?
Yeah.
10 more minutes is good? All right. So 2 really quick things then. So what I want to do really quick is I want you to raise your hand. If you have any questions, raise your hands, and I'm going to write down 5 questions, and I'm going to answer all of them. Okay? So yes, keep your hands up in a minute. But while you're thinking about your question, I'm just going to do this really quick here. And so, yes, it's not, okay. I'm going to give you a gift, right? So I wrote a book called The Developer Career Master Plan. There's this book right here, right? In this book, it has 15 chapters. There's a drawing here somewhere. Here. Has 15 chapters, right? It talks about some of the things we're talking about here, right? So it talks about 15 things that you got to do to be an amazing developer, right? And so this book, I cannot give you this book away for you because it's not mine. It's a book from Pact Publishing, right? I just wrote it, right? So it's not my book. So, but what I did with them is that I could give you 1 chapter for free, right? So I chose the first chapter talking about learning and acquiring skills because I think that's important for everyone. And so if you go to this QR code right here or this URL that's on the screen, you're gonna get the first chapter for free, right? So yeah, you can just maybe turn the lights off a little bit so you can easier. Yeah, I'll turn it. I'll get you because yes, no, yeah, you guys taking the picture, right? Yes, just turn it off. All right, so that's easy, right? So and this here is going to be right in front. So let me do the other way around. So let me get this thing here. Okay, right. Now the QR code. Okay. Now, the second thing that I did is that I wrote 15 articles about the 15 chapters of the book, right? So giving some good ideas from the 15 chapters. So those are things that I can give you, right? So if you download here, I'm also going to send you 15 articles that you can read the rest of the book. How about that, right? So it's not exactly the book. The book has a lot of interviews with cool people that you're going to be missing if you just download my articles, but at least you get some of it for free. Okay? So That's thing number one. And thing number two, and maybe I'm just going to be on the door there, because I want you guys to remember the reputation formula, right? Since I know some of you took pictures, and I did a sticker, pretty nice, with the reputation formula, right? The whole thing here. And what I like about this sticker, what happened? What I like about this sticker is that it's big enough to look very, very cool in your laptop, right? But also, it's small enough to fit your cell phone. So you never forget the reputation formula. So you decide where you want to put it, right? Okay. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to stay in the door there when you guys go out, and I'll give you, everyone can get one. Okay. So, so that's my physical gift, right? What else I'm going to do before I go for the questions, right? Really quick. Actually, let me go for the question really quick here. So questions, right? So yeah, you guys can go ahead and take the picture, but don't just take the picture. Go there, put your name and email. There's two things going to happen when you put your name and email there. One, you're going to get an email with me with the book. An email from me with the book, right? So get a free book. The second thing that's going to happen is you're going to get an email from me. It's my email, right? It's not like a marketing thing. It's my email. As I already told you guys, the company is me and my wife, right? It's like two people, right? So you're going to get, that's my personal email. So if there's any question that I could not answer here, any way that I can help you out in your career, you can just reply to that email and I will help you out. Okay. So, and I read all my emails. So just reply to everything. Okay. So questions, right? You had a, yeah. Okay. Concrete examples. Concrete examples. All right. Concrete examples to build trust. Okay. All right. Who else? 5 questions. Come on. Go ahead. What do you mean you're not a junior or intermediate? To me,
Like you're not a beginner.
That's your situation, or you're being yes. Okay. So how many years of career do you have?
In company?
No, in your whole life, your whole career, everything you ever did. Okay. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Program with law.
Yeah.
And in this position, you want to join a company.
Mhm.
Which path follow?
Okay. So right now, are you in a good place right now? Because you mentioned about the past, right? But are you right now? Are you in a good place? Are you doing something interesting?
We're hiring.
Yes. You know.
I think it's a good time.
That's a good time. Yes, it's a good time. They're hiring, right? So so you can come talk with them, right? So okay. So what to do? What to do if mid-level? Okay. All right. So okay, cool. Who else is right here? Yeah.
Can it be down the road whole one technology?
Mm-hmm. So
Like going to every jug you can find, but never put your hands on.
right, yeah.
On your technology, deep dive on it.
Okay, so I'll put a ruler here, right? And say where, right? Okay, I'll kind of get what you're talking about. So you want to be in a specialist, but not too much, right? Okay, that's cool. All right. Who else? Go ahead. Right. Okay. Why my book and not other books, right? Okay. Why your book? Okay. Very good question. Thanks for that. So who else here?
What would be the pitfalls, kind of career pitfalls
Mm-hmm. That's a very long list, right?
Yeah, I know.
Okay.
The main ones are the same.
All right.
The common ones.
Career pitfalls. Okay.
The most common ones
Okay. All right. So I'll try to get one more.
Yeah, do you think it's better to go international or to get local reach?
Okay. International. You're asking for a career or a company?
Both.
International or local? All right. Okay. Who else? Last chance. Go ahead.
You have to be in a company to access to great projects.
Okay. Have to be in a company. All right. I think I fit one more on the board.
But a small one.
Here.
For you, what is the role of the company?
What's the role of a company? Okay. The role of a company. All right. The role of company. Okay. All right. What if I don't have your question here? I'm going to stay here. I can talk to you, right? One thing I want to tell you is that there are situations. I understand the career is a very complex thing, and people, you might be confused. There's lots of people talking about things out there. I'll give some ideas here, but if you have over 10 years of career, because that's the people I work with, especially people that have over 20, and you're feeling stuck, 10, 15 years of career, you're feeling stuck, you don't know what to do, maybe the best option is that we sit down and have a conversation. Okay? So if you want to do that, I can run a conversation with you, right? But then you have to find me here somewhere and we can schedule. Okay? So that's something that I do for my mentees. I talk with them with their careers. So I have like a 1 hour, an hour and a half conversation to really understand what they are in their careers and how to do the next step, right? So, because I came to JCon, I've been trying to do this. My friend there did it with Rafael. Was it good, a conversation with Rafael? Yeah, so he did a conversation like this with Rafael. Rafael is a Java champion, a mentee of mine, by the way. And so I love to do those conversations, right? So if you want to do that, especially if you have 10, 15, 20 years of career, because I do understand that those get very, very hard to do the next step, come talk to me and we can schedule something. Okay? Now, if you download my book, you have my email. So reply to me and say, hey, Bruno, you mentioned here that I could do a conversation with you. And then, so I'm offering this for you guys. This is the previous to last user group that I visit. I don't think I have a lot of space left on my agenda, but if you come talk to me, we're gonna arrange that. Okay. All right. Now let me go over this here a little bit. I said 10 minutes. I already used 10 minutes. I'm gonna try to do in 10 minutes the whole thing here. All right. Don't worry. Don't Brazilian time, right? Don't say don't worry to me, man, because you have no idea what you're talking about, right? It's okay. Tomorrow night, yeah, I got a 10-9, right? So that's okay. All right. So let's talk a little bit about those things. And if you guys have any other question, I can continue here for as long as you guys want, right? So let me see here. First of all, let me start with this one here, right? What the level, because I think that might help us answer the rest. Look, I don't think it's a bad idea for you to be a specialist. I don't think, right? And so the more you know about something, the better you become and the more you build your visibility. So I don't think it's a bad idea that you go very, very deep on anything that you want to go deep, right? And so it's better for you to be a specialist than for people to see you as a generalist. It's not true for everything. For example, if you're a manager, you can probably be a good manager in whatever thing you want because management is something that you can apply to lots of different things. But every technical position, in software development is a technical position, right? But not only, but sysadmin and DevOps, all those kind of things, right? But not only in our area. It could be in engineering, for example, in the technical positions. in the technical positions, it's usually better that you are a specialist than you are a generalist, right? And even the generalist is a specialist. You know, I'm what we call generalist. You know, my specialty, I'm very, very good in joining a project and figure out what's wrong with the project. That's that's the thing I'm very good at. So in the first 90 minutes, right, I figure out what's wrong with the project and I go out to fix what's wrong with the project. So usually in the first week, I got some good results for the customer because I'm solving the right thing and not what they call me for. Right? And so I'm a generalist in that regard because I'm good at solving problems. Right? And so I don't promote myself as I'm a generalist, because if you promote yourself as a generalist, no one cares. But I'm the guy that solves your problem. That's, you know, I'm the guy that solves the hardest problems that you have. Make sense? So you know, no matter what you do, you have to position yourself as a specialist. Okay? Because people don't understand when you don't know what you do. You have to be very clear. I'm very good in this. Now, with that said, here's a trick for you to be a great specialist and at the same time, a great generalist at the same time. The trick is you don't have to learn everything. You have to learn about everything. Right? So there are some things that you really like and you're going to go deep and go as deep as you want. Go down the rabbit hole and, you know, everything you want. You know, one of the top guys in the industry, Bill Joy, he was a very special guy, you know, because Bill Joy, he founded Sun. He was amazing in hardware. He was amazing in chip production. He was one of the guys that created the Spark chip. He was amazing in software development. You know, he wrote the specification of Java, right? So he knew a lot about everything. And he would go deep on the tiny little details, right? So you can go as deep as you want in whatever you want. But for example, he did nothing about business, right? So there's things that he didn't care. So if it's something that interests you, go as deep as you want. But in everything else, you have to learn about everything. What do I mean by that? You know, you have to be able to participate in the conversation. So you might be very good at Java and go all the details of Java, but you have to understand what Kotlin is, what R is, you know, what AI is, what DevOps is, what Kubernetes is, what cloud. I mean, you have to have an understanding what those things are. Because we already defined it in the very beginning. The first thing we talk about here is if you get hired to do R, you're going to learn R like this, right? So you have at least to be able to talk about it and discuss, oh, this is good for that. It's not good for this other thing. Make sense? So you have to learn about as much as you can, because then you can participate in the conversation. You have the vocabulary. Do you want to be a specialist in anything? You have to have the vocabulary. Because the problem when you don't have the vocabulary is that people tell you things and you have no idea what they're talking about. And then you're lost. You can't participate in the conversation because you have no idea what that is. I always remember that when I joined the university, I had, you know, as I already told you guys that I had to learn English, right? So when I joined university, I had lived a year in the US, I knew English. And so the first month I was in university, thanks, man. You got the book? Do you need help? Yes, write me an email. Yes. Right. Okay. Perfect. Right. So, so then I you know, the first month I was in university, they had this international conference about cryptography. I had no idea what it was, and so but it was all in English. I said, I know English, right? So I can just go there. And so I had this guy talking about this number. So the guy would put like a number screen, like a whole screen full of numbers. And he would say, if this number is a prime, he would get another big number, all numbers in the screen. This number is also prime. I had no idea what they're talking about, right? And so I understood what they're saying, and I had no idea what they're talking about. Today, when I look back, because I went and I know security and I know cryptography, I know all these things. So today I can go back and remember that's what I know what they're talking about now, but at the time I was like completely lost. You cannot be completely lost because otherwise you're not participating in the conversation. Make sense? So go as deep as you want in anything that you want, because guys, the people that go very deep are the ones that are most thought of, the most desirable. And by the way, this is anything, absolutely anything. There's a guy that I like to follow on YouTube that he's a master builder of Lego. Man, you can make your life building Legos while you're doing software development, right? Think about it, right? So yes, if you go very deep in anything, we are right now, because of the internet, we are in the time of the long tail. Anything that you go very deep at, you're going to be successful. Make sense? So yes, no problem being very, very deep, but you have to know about everything. Okay, and that's something you can do. You map. You go to an event, get all the talks, right, of the event. See everything you don't know what it is, and ask ChatGPT. Build a database in your memory of what is what. Actually, there's a friend of mine, Ed Burns, that wrote a great book called The Secrets of Rockstar Developers and Programmers, The Secret of Rockstar Programmers. And he interviewed lots of the top programs in the world. And almost every single one of them said what I'm telling you here. When you see something, you don't need to go deep on that something, but you have to know what that thing is and rest in your mind. So, this thing here, what it is. It's a web framework. So now you know it's a web framework. You put together all the web frameworks. What is the other thing here? It's a programming language. What is the other thing here? Is an automation tool. So you know what those things are. And so you can have conversation with people. Even though you don't know very deep about each of those things, you can have conversations. And the moment you need, you can learn. Okay? All right. So then what you do if you're mid-level? Okay, so I'm just gonna do like this because I can't cross it, right? So what you do if you're mid-level? You got to build that database in your minds, right? Here's the difference between junior, mid-level, and senior. Okay? The junior knows everything, right? Because the junior just kind of learned one thing, and he believes that that's the only thing that exists. And so he knows everything, right? And you talk to the junior say, yeah, man, I did some JavaScripts, right? I have a junior that was telling me the other day, I did this API using JavaScript, right? This is the junior, right? So he knows everything, right? And then what happens? Then you start growing, and you start learning the things that you don't know, right? So there's lots of things you don't know, and then you start getting desperate, and then you're mid-level. You're the desperate phase. You think because when you're junior, the only thing you knew a lot, or you thought you knew a lot, because in reality you knew almost nothing, but everything that existed you knew, because that's the only thing you knew existed, right? And so you believe you knew everything. And so when you become a mid-level, you get desperate because there's lots of things you don't know. And sorry?
You know that there's so much.
Right. And so then you get desperate, right? And then when you get to senior level, you get past that. Because now on senior level, you realize that what you know is much smaller than what you don't know. And you're okay with that. You're not desperate anymore. Because you know when you need it, you can learn. Right? So if you want to fast track your career to senior level, learn how to be okay with not knowing things. Right? But that's what you got to do in mid-level, right? And how you do that? You go do projects. Go do things. Because the more things you do, the better you get. Okay? And then, let's see here. Career pitfalls. Let's see. I'm going to talk about the company here a little bit, right? So, do you have to be in a company to do those things? No, you don't. You can do those things by yourself. The good thing about what we have today is that, that there's so many people in the world doing so many interesting things. And in our field, we have like open source software, for example. Man, you can work today, you can work on the top projects of the planet. Think about anything you want to do, absolutely anything. I want to work on, I want to do space travel. I want to do science. I want to do biology. I want to do anything. There is an open source project that does that. So you don't need to be in a company doing interesting things. You can be doing open source projects, right? But the best way to do this is actually get your company to use the open source projects that they need. And so you can work on the open source project being paid by your company. That's even better, right? And so you can be working on a project that's much more powerful, much more interesting. It's larger than you. It's larger than your company, even though you're just working on a small project inside your company, right? So no, you don't need to be in a company, or you don't need to be. Now, what's the role of the company on all of these? They pay your salary, right? So you better understand that. That's important. I'm not joking. Your company pays your salary because they value you. There's something that you bring for the company that's powerful, that's important for them, and they pay you lots and lots of money because of that. We are very well paid to sit down on our houses or in an air conditioning office and don't do any heavy work. We're very well paid to use our brains. So we have to understand the value of that. And we have to be very good in what we do, because we want to deserve that amount of money they're paying us, right? And so if your company doesn't pay you well, or your projects are boring, that I understand that, but the place where you are is the best place for you to grow. That's very important. The place where you are is the best place for you to grow. Everyone thinks, oh, I need to change companies to grow. No. Where you are is where everyone trusts you, so you can grow there. But then I'm going to stay in the same company forever? No, I'm not saying this. I'm saying that you should grow where you are until you grow so much that you have to go somewhere else. Right? So grow as much as you can. It's not every company is going to give you the CTO level. Right? But your company is going to get you high enough. And then there might be another company that's going to come to you and say, I want this, what you have, more than your company needs you. So I'm willing to pay you more. I'm willing to pay you, give you other things, whatever. Right? So, so value your company. Actually, one thing, all of us are responsible professionals, aren't you? Right? You're responsible, right? You do what needs to be done, right? So here's the number one responsibility that you have, that no one tells you this. But the number one responsibility that you have is to want to continue where you are. Think about that, right? Because you say, no, I'm very responsible because, if I don't do my work, the company's going to suffer, right? So I do the good work. But what is the worst thing for the company? Is if you leave. Because if you leave, everything that you have is going down the drain. So the first responsibility you have with your company is wanting to stay. So what does that mean? Bruno, but it's a bad company, it's a bad situation, it's a bad salary. How do I want it to stay? That's your responsibility. You got to make it enough for you to want to stay. What do I mean by that? Go negotiate. Talk to your company, move to a better project, negotiate your salary, do whatever you can. That's your responsibility. Do whatever you can to want to stay. That doesn't mean you're going to stay. It just means that, if someone else offers you better, you might leave. That's okay. I have no problem you leaving anytime you want, right? But your first responsibility for your company is wanting to stay. And I'm saying this because developers are afraid to negotiate. They give you a bad project and you accept. They give you a bad salary, you accept. They don't promote you, accept. You got to negotiate. You got to be talking with your manager all the time. Let me tell you this. The conversation about you growing has to be a daily conversation with your manager. You have to know what he wants. You have to know how good it's going to be for him. And that's hard for the manager too, yes. Because for the manager, we're having this conversation before, getting people to want to stay is hard. But it's our responsibility, not only the responsibility of the company. We as responsible professionals, we have to do this, because here's the reality that we have in our fields. It's not in our fields, but in our fields is very real. Most managers were technical people that are moving to management. We don't usually hire a non-technical manager to manage a technical company. So what happens is that they were good technical people and they're moving and become bad managers, because most of them don't want to be managers. Some do and become managers, right? And become good managers, here, okay? Right? You're sponsoring here, so you become a good manager, right? Okay? So some do become good managers, right? But most don't. They don't want to do this, so they become bad managers. And now you are stuck with a bad manager, and it is your responsibility to help the bad manager be a good manager with you, right? Because you cannot be stuck with a bad manager. So he has to succeed. Because if he doesn't succeed, you suffer, right? So that's our responsibility. That's why you have to talk to your manager. Hey, Rick, I really want to grow. How do we grow in this company? Oh, I have no idea. So go figure it out, man. How we can figure out that together? What can I do? Can I go talk to the director? No, don't want to talk to that. Let me talk to him. Okay, good. So go talk with him. Then 2 days later, have you talked to the director? Not yet. I'm a little afraid. No. Go talk with him. Otherwise, I will. You have to help your manager be successful. That's that's what we do. Our job is to make our manager successful, right? And so we have to understand that. So that's the role of the company, right? Okay, so now, what does has to do with all this, right? Because why my book? One of my very few claims of fame, I have a couple, but one of my very few claims of fame is that I opened for Iron Maiden 3 times. Yeah. He does not believe that. He laughed, right? He said, that's impressive, but he said,
if it's true, it's impressive.
If it's true, it's impressive. Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to prove that's true.
Yeah.
All right? Okay, so Bruce Dixon came 3 times to Brazil to an event that I organized. I was one of the organizers. So the 3 times that he was there, I was the guy on stage talking to the audience, responding career questions, and bringing him on the stage. That's the close I'm going to get to open for Iron Maiden, right? But I think it's good enough, right? And so, good enough, right? Okay, so I actually cannot even say that. I'm not the contract we had to sign. I didn't sign, so I can say it. But the contract we signed, you cannot mention Iron Maiden related to him, because that's not an Iron Maiden show. It's a Bruce Dixon thing, right? But anyway, the first time he was there, Bruce Dixon, a rock star. I'm not. So he understands what rock stars are. I don't. So I'm just going to trust him. So Bruce Dixon said one thing that I always kept in mind. The first time he went, I always kept in my memory. He said, the difference between a rock star musician and a normal musician, I'm going to apply to the champion that you mentioned before, right? The difference between a rock star musician and a normal musician, it's not the music, right? Because they both have to have the music to be musicians. And you guys know that, because there's a lot of rock star musicians that are terrible musicians, right? We criticize them how terrible musicians they are. So he said the difference between a rock star musician and a normal musician is the rest, or the things the rock star does that the normal musician doesn't do. Is connect with the audience, is negotiating contracts, is doing amazing shows, is building side products, is all the other things. So I'm going to apply this to you guys. The difference between a rock star developer and the normal developer is not the technology. We both need the technology to be developers. The difference between the rock star developer and the rest, in the normal developer, is the rest, are the other things that the rock star does that the normal developer doesn't do. And when they do the things that you don't do, they get the best projects. And when they get the best project, they become the best developers. Right? So my book talked about the rest. Every other book that you have in your library talks about the normal thing the developers do. Right? So my book talks about the rest, the thing that normal developers don't do. And so I don't care how many of the technical books you read, but my book will give you the rest, will make you a rock star. It's time to stop.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm just going to finish real quick here. One, very fast. So, okay, so then let's say here, international, local. The more external you are, the more you grow local. So always go after the big one. The more visible you are outside, the more visible you are inside. But the reverse is not true. So no, so you want to be very visible. You want to grow your career, go as much as you can. So go outside of your company, go outside of your city, go outside of your country, as much as you can. The more visibility you have outside, the more visibility you have inside. Okay? That works for companies too, by the way. And two things, concrete example and career pitfalls. So concrete examples to build trust is visibility. That's the example. When more people know who you are, they trust you. So the concrete examples is go write an article, go do an open source project, go do a talk, go explain something to someone, go be visible. You cannot be the guy that gets a phone call if people don't know who you are. So concrete examples is things that make you visible. But if you want the one that gets the most visibility, but also takes a long time for you to do it, is write a book. Right? If you write a book, you become instant experts. Right? So that's a possibility for you guys to do. Okay? So now career pitfalls, there's a lot of things that we do wrong. But I think the biggest pitfall that we have is, we're already talking about so much about here, but I'm just going to mention that, is to believe that for you to be an amazing developer, all you need to do is go technical. That is not true. It goes back to the very beginning of this conversation. If you promote yourself as an expert, you get to solve the most complex problems. And when you solve the most complex problem, that's when you become an expert. So you have to understand that's a reality. And the more you ignore this, the more you don't get the most complex projects, and the more you don't become the experts. So I think the biggest pitfall is developers that talk to me and say, Bruno, I'm not interested in any of that. I don't want any of these things. All I want to do is learn and get better. But then if you don't get paid to get better, you don't get better. Oh, no. I'll get better because I'm going to do an open source project. Okay, an open source project increases your visibility because now there's tens of people in an open source project knows who you are. So when you grow, you're already doing what I'm talking about here, right? So, if all you want to do is learn by yourself, then you're toasted. Okay? And we can talk about other pitfalls in the conversation. All right. Sorry for being very late. Thank you so much. Thank you.